This is the Brave New Coin Crypto Conversation, hosted by Andy Pickering.
Hi everyone, Andy Pickering here. I'm your host and welcome to the Crypto Conversation, a Brave New Coin podcast where we talk to the people building the future in the Bitcoin, blockchain and cryptocurrency space. My guest today is Aditya Das, a financial markets analyst and crypto asset researcher here at Brave New Coin. Welcome to the Crypto Conversation, Aditya.
Thank you for having me, Andy. I have been eagerly waiting for my chance to be called up to the plate. I'm excited to be here.
Excellent. I'm excited too. Now, Aditya, you and I, we know each other pretty well. We spend a lot of time together as we're both part of Brave New Coin's Insights team. So listeners, if you've ever read one of the Brave New Coin price analysis research pieces on bravenewcoin.com, if it wasn't written by Josh, who tends to cover Bitcoin and the top alts, then it was definitely written by Aditya. And so while Josh, as I say, does the Bitcoin and the top alts, you cover everything else, right?
Yeah, pretty much. I kind of have free reign to write about anything outside of the top 10 or even on the fringes of the top 10. So this could range from assets considered large caps like Tron, which have multi-billion dollar market caps, or very obscure coins well outside the top 100 like Aragon, which are just interesting projects or things that catch my eye. So yeah, I kind of have free reign, and I try to pick different and interesting and unique projects.
Nice. And what I like about the reports that you and Josh do, and Josh and I talked about this on episode 2 of the podcast when Josh came on. What I like is that the BNC price analysis articles, they're a really strong mix, I think, of fundamental, macro, and technical analysis. And I know, Aditya, that you especially, you're very strong on the fundamental side. Whenever I look over and just to see what you're up to, you'll invariably be deep inside a block explorer or an altcoin project's GitHub account, or you'll have some intimidating looking Excel spreadsheet up. Same question I asked Josh. How did you pull together all the necessary skills to become such a weapon of an analyst on the blockchain fundamentals? Yeah,
it's a good question because for a lot of people, crypto fundamentals are quite simple because of the new nature of the space and the similarities between a lot of projects and the characterization that it's kind of all hype and speculation as opposed to like hardcore fundamentals as you would see in like traditional equities, which have, fully functioning businesses and revenue streams and things like that. So starting off, being somebody who focused primarily on fundamentals in crypto was initially a big challenge because, it isn't immediately obvious to somebody new that you have to look kind of deeply into things like GitHub, discussions and commit pages, other things like scrolling through, multiple different block explorers, multiple different on-chain analytics sources, things like order book data. One of the issues is there's no standardization. So going back to the question is how I developed my style and how did I develop my sources, it was a lot of learning on the fly. So, my style of writing has changed significantly from my first PA in May 2018 to where they are now. And, I feel like every time I write a new one, there's like a slight tweak or a new indicator that I'm using or a different metric. So in terms of kind of any advice for how to find good fundamental data, it's just a lot of it is intuition. So if you think something makes sense, it generally does. And you've got to trust yourself because, there's no standardization, there's no kind of best method, and different analysts have different styles.
They do, and I think that's part of what makes blockchain so exciting, I suppose, from an analyst point of view, is that the field is so new. There's a lot of scope to develop your own style, develop your own way of putting metrics together. And as I say, I think you and Josh both do a fantastic job of that. And so listeners, again, just Brave New Coin under price analysis if you want to get into Josh's and Aditya's work there. But having said that, Aditya, the reason that you're on the podcast today is to talk about a new report that you've been working on, and the report has been published to bravenewcoin.com. The report is called Ethereum at the Crossroads, the Istanbul Hard Fork and its Implications, and we'll put the link to that report in the show notes so it's easy to find, easy to download. Aditya, what is the high-level summary of your report?
Yeah, so my report covers specifically the upcoming Ethereum Istanbul hard fork in October, which is kind of at the foreground of my discussion. But behind that is all these other moving parts within the Ethereum ecosystem, because 4 months after Istanbul launches, Ethereum 2.0 and Serenity and the Beacon chain and Proof of Stake all launches. So I think my initial thrust was, why does Ethereum making this huge change to its 1.0 solution 4 months before 2.0 launches? And, as I got into the investigation, there's a lot of moving parts here, a lot of stakeholders who have, over the last few months, made suggestions. There's been political issues. And yeah, it's just kind of covering the current state of Ethereum development and where Istanbul fits in amongst all of that.
Nice. And look, there's a lot to get into here. So I think it would help, Aditya, if we tried to put this into a bit of context. Let's set the scene. So I suppose in the wider context of the crypto ecosystem, and probably you and I as well, in terms of our own personal leanings, like I tend to lean more towards Bitcoin, you tend to lean more towards Ethereum. That's why our relationship is so much fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
But, the narrative in 2019, I think, so far at least, has been about probably the resurgence in Bitcoin. We hit the bottom of the bear market in December, then consolidated through until March. Once we hit April, Bitcoin went on a fairly significant price rally, as you know. Price kept rising. We went from, I think, 4K US to a high of 13K. That's a 3x just in this year. But in 2019, alts have not enjoyed the same price performance, have they?
Yeah, it's been interesting because the year started really well. Ethereum bounced off bottoms of around like $80 to $90 in double digits in late 2018, November, December-ish, to hitting like $300 in a space of 3 months. And post that, prices depressed again. So it's been quite up and down and volatile for large caps like Ethereum and Litecoin. So, the picture's changed quite a lot over the last few months, because it was looking a little bit more rosy around April and May. Yeah, in terms of growing Bitcoin dominance, I think Bitcoin is really benefiting from the fact that it is crypto's hardest asset. So it is probably the most tried and tested and oldest digital asset, by a long way. And even things with massive market caps that, have established use cases like Ethereum can't really compete with it when it comes to being a hedge against volatile like geopolitical times. So, in the background of Bitcoin's rising dominance has been all these issues in the real world, like, US-China trade tensions, Korea-Japan trade tensions, the issues in Hong Kong. Bitcoin, more than any other digital asset, has, been viewed as an alternative to things like gold or property, more accessible. And yeah, we've seen money flowing into it, and it has succeeded while other assets have stagnated or lost value. So coming back to Ethereum, I guess for it to close that market cap dominance in the short run, the market would have to view it more as a hard asset. And it just, because of a number of reasons, doesn't have that trust as, as something that you can throw money into and is kind of going to give you a yield over the long run, which Bitcoin kind of people view it in that sense that, we can, throw money into this and 5 to 10 years from now, it's probably going to be worth more. Whereas Ethereum doesn't really have that position of privilege.
Yes, I agree with you. And I think obviously this year, Bitcoin has benefited from being, as you say, that hard money asset. And from an institutional investor point of view, Bitcoin would be the much safer bet, whereas altcoins not so much at perhaps this early stage. But let's dive into Ethereum then. Aditya, at a high level, how would you describe Ethereum? What is it that you like about the project? What is it that Ethereum does that Bitcoin does not?
Yeah, I would classify it as the original platform blockchain. So a very top level summary of what Ethereum offers is a platform where developers can build applications and smart contracts that are decentralized, permissionless, distributed, and because of its world computer narrative and the nature of its code, the potential and implications for what could be built on top of it are endless. So can be compared to a decentralized internet. And yeah, so all of this is powered by things like smart contracts, and underlying the platform where things are built on is a blockchain that secures it using a network of nodes.
That's a good summary, I think. And the narrative on Ethereum has changed, though, hasn't it?
Absolutely, yeah, it has. When it first had its ICO, and during the ICO mania in 2017, people really got behind the world computer narrative and started throwing money into projects building on top of Ethereum. And at that point, there was a lot of excitement because you saw like proof of concepts or developers pushing these unbelievable solutions that we never seen before. Things like Augur, things like Aragon, just really crypto kitties, non-fungible tokens. And Ethereum was released to the world with all this excitement and all this building. However, for the most part, even Ethereum developers will admit to this, it is an incomplete product which has not dealt with specific issues like scaling or transaction costs or how to make UX simpler. It doesn't have the accompanying infrastructure that other internet style solutions have, like app stores or just web applications. Yeah, I mean the narrative has changed because it's always been viewed as a world computer, and it still is expected to become one day, but people seem to be running out of patience because of the amount of money that was put into it and the fact that building had already started. And it's difficult to put the milk back into the bottle once product is out and needs to satiate the stakeholders that are already active on the network.
Whether you're an enterprise fund manager or a retail trader, buying and selling cryptocurrencies successfully requires price discovery you can rely on. Brave New Coin's liquid indices provide trusted US dollar prices for Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Ripple. Featuring end-of-day or intraday outputs, you can count on the BLX, ELX, and XRPLX for accurate US dollar pricing for smart contract oracles, settlement price discovery, net asset valuation, and performance analysis. Visit bravenewcoin.com to find out more.
So here we are now in the latter part of 2019. Ethereum is, as you say in the report, at a crossroads. So far, Ethereum has failed to deliver working solutions at scale for enterprise customers due to the twin threats of competitors that I think are fast catching up on Ethereum and problems with scaling the capacity of the current Ethereum blockchain. Ethereum, I suppose, finds itself in this predicament where they need to quickly scale the blockchain. And to do this, the roadmap is very thorough and it makes sense, but it's a little bit convoluted and hard to explain, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It is. There are kind of three main Ethereum development projects going on right now. So the one I cover in this report is ETH 1.0, which is, the Ethereum network we've all come to know and love. It's where all our apps are hosted on, the projects, it's the one that supported the ICO boom in 2017. And it was always kind of the plan that it would eventually be released by a proof of stake solution, the Serenity release that would take Ethereum to its next level. However, as we kind of approach the point where Serenity is close to being launched, Ethereum developers in the community have kind of realized the transition from existing ETH to new ETH is going to be challenging. It sounds like a mess, and it is a mess. And yeah, I think at some point all the moving parts will have to come together, and there needs to be some sort of coordination or a clear plan about how each of the three kind of development projects is going to work out and fit together.
Let's just try and understand this then. So at the moment we have Ethereum Classic, and I apologize for even mentioning Ethereum Classic and bringing Ethereum Classic into the picture, but I think we have to, just so we can really clearly lay out the current state of the Ethereum ecosystem and where it's going. So on the one hand, we have Ethereum Classic, but let's put that to the side because we're not really concerned with that. Then we have the current Ethereum blockchain, which we'll call Ethereum 1.0.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is the proof of work, GPU mined network. Historically it's been mined using Ethash, and yeah, it's the Ethereum we all know and love.
Okay, so and then we have what we were going to call Ethereum 2.0, which is the Serenity update. Yes. And let's put that aside for a second because that all begins to come online in 2020, yes. And that is Ethereum 2.0. We can think of that as the shiny future version of Ethereum, the promised land.
Exactly. Yeah. Serenity. The name's a hint to what it's trying to be. Yeah.
So where we are now with Ethereum 1.0, the current Ethereum blockchain is having a hard fork, and it's called Istanbul.
Yes.
And that happens in October.
Yes, it happens in October, and it ends, a long development phase, which was referred to as Metropolis. And preceding it was St. Petersburg and Constantinople. So again, there's been updates over the last 2 years, and two big ones this year, which was Constantinople and Istanbul, which are designed to some of these fixes are they're sort of small to medium fixes designed to help the network, deal with short-term challenges like scaling, like immediate scaling challenges and decentralization. So it's like emerging threats that they're trying to stomp down so that 1.0 can sustain itself for as long as possible. And it's looking like that, time to sustain itself will be about 5 to 10 years. So it seems like, the updates are sort of like band-aid fixes rather than anything major or like a redefinition. Whereas, 2.0 will be the big, redefinition and restructuring. And that's when, the philosophical elements will change, and Ethereum will have like ETH. So for example, the ETH token will have like a programmable store of value characteristic. So it's, again, that probably sounds complicated as well, but yeah.
Yeah, so the confusing bit, Aditya, I think is, why is Ethereum hard forking in October and then launching a new blockchain 2.0 next year? So that's the confusing bit. And I think the simple answer, the easiest way to understand that is the current Ethereum blockchain has a lot of different projects, smart contracts, decentralized applications, whatever. All of those different projects are deployed on Ethereum now. So you can't just launch a brand new Ethereum, because then what happens to all the existing stuff? But to solve Ethereum's long-term problems and make sure that it's fit to scale far into the future, they do need to launch a brand new blockchain. So the idea is they'll launch Serenity ETH 2.0. That's the brand new blockchain. But in the meantime, the Ethereum developers will keep upgrading the current 1.0 chain so that all those existing projects can slowly find their way to the new chain if they want to over time. That's basically what's happening.
Yeah, absolutely. And another reason that, this is confusing, and even with that explanation is confusing, is, some people have asked, why don't we just, go whole hog and jump onto 2.0? Why are we working so hard to keep people on the new chain? Like, if we create a beacon chain and we force people to jump over and transfer their tokens over, and, there's ways to do that, and there's technical, challenges around doing that. But it is, possible that the core devs could decide, hey, this is the past. We're going to move on to this new chain, and this is it's going to be like a mass migration. However, it's part of the reason they're taking this sort of staggered approach is, one, operational reasons, but there has sort of emerged again over the last few months kind of conspiracy theory-esque reasons for why 1.0 is being worked on so much and, has so much time invested in it, despite this, bigger update coming 4 months later. And the piece covers a lot of that and a lot of the discussion and a lot of the debating, because, despite what we know now and this solution where you're going to have two chains running simultaneously for at least 5 to 10 years, people don't seem satisfied with that. And kind of, again, comparable to Bitcoin, SegWit, 2x, bigger block discussion, you're seeing two parties emerge. And, both parties have valid arguments for, the camps they're picking, whether be it complete 2.0 commitment versus this kind of staggered release approach and keeping two chains running. And I think it's, Ethereum is stuck between a rock and a hard place in terms of its governance, because, there'll probably be like some more mudslinging or, frustration from members of the community going forward.
That's right. And you cover that side of things very well in the report. So please don't hesitate to download that report, listeners, if you want to get into it. Here's a question, Aditya, that I still don't understand completely myself. As I understand it, Ethereum 2.0, the shiny new future version of Ethereum. The blockchain itself is first deployed in early 2020.
Yeah.
But as I understand it, it's not really usable from a outside user perspective for around another 2, 3, 4, 5 years.
I think the current estimated timeline is 4 to 5 years.
Why is that?
Well, I mean, again, code challenges and just the nature of the size of the update and the migrating of nodes. You're going to have to change the structure around from proof of work to proof of stake. Yeah, deployment costs. And I think it is a fair question. And I'm not a technical guy, so it's very difficult for me to, give you that assessment for why does it take 4 to 5 years to, launch smart contracts on ETH 2.0. At a top level, I guess the ambition of Serenity and everything that it entails in terms of a new gas model, a new confirmation layer model, means that it's going to take an extended amount of time for it to be like a working product, whatever that means, for blockchain projects or blockchains. So for us, Ethereum, the product, which means a platform where anybody can launch a smart contract or build a dApp on top of, is probably not going to be live on Ethereum 2.0 till at least 4 to 5 years after it launches.
Wow, that's a scary prospect. So in the meantime, we're going to have Ethereum Classic, Ethereum 1.0, and Ethereum 2.0. Existing projects like NEM, Neo, EOS, all those sort of existing platform blockchains. Then there are new projects like Cosmos, I think Polkadot, Dfinity. These guys are catching up. What do you see happening in the next 18 months or so?
Yeah, it's an interesting question because Ethereum and some of these alternatives directly, address some of Ethereum's failings, primarily in terms of throughput and scalability. So you're looking at chains like EOS or Tezos, which, are less processing power intensive and can execute smart contract operations faster. In most cases, this comes at the sacrifice of decentralization. So yeah, I mean, they're not perfect alternatives to Ethereum. Ethereum at this stage, I feel like because of its proof of work consensus and, the size of its network, has the best network effects. It also has the best supporting infrastructure. So developer tools like, OpenZeppelin and Truffle make it much easier in a lot of cases to build on top of, Ethereum as opposed to other platform blockchains. And a lot of that is because Ethereum has had a head start in terms of having, building a community and having these like supporting tools be built by members of those communities. So yeah, it seems like a lot of times projects being built on these new alternative platform blockchains have incentives to do so. So these could be like developer grants and things like that. For a project to pick a platform blockchain, it sort of depends on their requirements. There's certain apps which have, incredibly high transaction output. So maybe things like DEXs or casino apps, which may prefer a more centralized option that offers higher speeds. But again, yeah, there's very few direct alternatives Ethereum from like a philosophical, like decentralized point of view, just because of the size of its network, the strength of its community, and it's just the most kind of open source, easy to be a fan of platform blockchain solution out there.
Okay, just to finish off, Aditya, medium long term Ethereum, bullish or bearish?
Okay, medium term, so we're thinking up until probably early to mid 2020 bearish. I think if it shoots well above the 200 level it's at right now, I'd be surprised. While all this uncertainty is going on, I'm not expecting to see huge. And expecting to see Ethereum's next big bull run. In the long term, yeah, I still believe in the world computer narrative and everything that Ethereum stands for and the strength of its developer community and the things that people have done with limited resource so far is incredibly impressive. So, non-fungible token games like CryptoKitties, other things like Augur, DAO platforms like Aragon, other things like Kyber networks. So people have done well with very limited resources. So I'm in the long term excited for what is possible with a more complex, usable Ethereum platform.
Fantastic. All right. Thank you for talking all things Ethereum with me today, Aditya. Listeners, if you'd like to download the report, it is called Ethereum at the Crossroads, the Istanbul hard fork and its implications. The link is in the show notes. We'll take a quick break and let's come back with some crypto hot takes.
Looking for near real-time crypto asset spot rates for everything from Tron to Monero or Doge to BNB? Brave New Coin's GWA and MWA crypto APIs calculate a fair price for over 1,500 assets and 6,000 pairs across the global network of crypto exchanges. At 30-second tick intervals and available via streaming or REST API, Brave New Coin's GWA and MWA APIs deliver independent third-party price discovery you can rely on.
All right, Aditya, I know you're excited about this. Are you ready for the crypto conversation hot take round?
I can barely contain myself.
All right, I want your hot takes, your hot fire, take your best shot. Here we go. Aditya, where do you sit on the Bitcoin maximalist to multi-coin opportunist spectrum?
Multi-coin opportunist for sure.
Aditya, what would you say is your firmest conviction crypto opinion?
That digital money is a better solution to fiat money that exists right now.
Nice. Aditya, if you were Satoshi Nakamoto relaunching Bitcoin today, what one thing would you change?
I don't think I would change anything. I think Satoshi, is a snapshot in time that was perfect for what it was.
Nice. Hard to argue with that. Aditya, Bitcoin price prediction, December 2019, where are we at?
Good question. Yeah, I'm going to go for a safe bet and say anywhere between 14 and 16,000 USD.
Nice, oddly specific and accurate, we hope. Let's see. Aditya, what is blockchain's killer app?
Good question. Ethereum.
Aditya, Facebook's LibreCoin, good or bad for the crypto ecosystem and why?
Bad because it doesn't need it. Permission blockchains or closed networks just don't fit in with the ethos of the ecosystem.
Okay, Aditya, 2020, the US presidential election, who wins?
Okay, my heart says Andrew Yang, my head says Donald Trump.
Andrew Yang, I love it. Okay, speaking of Mr. Yang, Andrew Yang, he has a thing for universal basic income as a fix for AI-induced automation. I suppose if you're an Andrew Yang guy, you're part of the Yang gang, you got to be a supporter?
Yes, I support a lot of his positions, not everything, but I think some of his stances would do America a lot of good.
UBI included?
Once it's fleshed out a little bit more and kind of the numbers make more sense to people and there's more transparency about where that money is going to come from, then yeah, sure, I think UBI is a great idea.
Aditya, Bill Gates famously said, we tend to overestimate what we can accomplish in 2 years and underestimate what we can accomplish in 10. What does the blockchain space look like in 10 years' time?
One thing for sure is multiple boom and bust cycles. I think at the end of 10 years, crypto will come out of it stronger with specifically much better custody and easier ways to access it.
Aditya, William Gibson said the future is here, it's just not evenly distributed. What's an example of the future being here right now, but most people just don't know about it yet?
Wow, good question. Okay, yeah, I'm going to go for something not crypto related, and I'll say zero code or drag and drop website builders. So I think tools like Canva, Wix, Bubble.is have come, a really long way in terms of helping people start businesses and without the need of heavy development costs or having to hire people. So I think, for startups or people who want to start their own business, I think solutions like Wix, Canva, and Bubble.is have, really impressed me over the last few years.
Boom. Aditya, let's zoom out. What's the long-term future for the human race? Do you see dystopia or utopia?
Somewhere in the middle. I don't think the world will ever change much from where we're at right now. Any kind of new technology or developments will be marginal.
And finally, Aditya, what's your favorite science fiction book, film, or show?
Okay. I'm going to say Jurassic Park, even though it's probably more of a summer blockbuster, but 2001: A Space Odyssey is like an easy answer, so I'll go for that one.
Nice. Life finds a way. Okay, hey, fantastic talking to you today, Aditya. Please, the microphone is yours. Tell the listeners how they can find you on your various platforms.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Andy. This conversation was great. The best place to probably reach me would be Twitter. So my handle is Das Crypto for You. So that's my last name, Crypto for You, no spaces. You can also find my work on bravenewcoin.com under my author profile, which is Aditya Das. I also have a Monday newsletter that, I do for Brave New Coin, which is a macro overview of the previous week's events and things to look out for in the coming week. Just closing thoughts on Ethereum. Yeah, I am a little bit nervous about its short to medium term future, and particularly the speculative or the community reaction to all the drama that appears to be bubbling underneath the surface. I think at some stage it will come to a head. But yeah, I mean, pulling back, I do believe in Ethereum long term. And I think just like Bitcoin had its big bear market in 2014, 2015, where people lost hope, Ethereum naturally needs to go through that process. And, we'll come out of it, or the Ethereum community will come out of it stronger and, ready to take on the world and be its computer.
Mate, could not have said it better myself. Fantastic closing thoughts. Thank you for that. Don't forget to download the report, Ethereum at the Crossroads, the Istanbul hard fork. Hey, look, if you listened this far, you've made it to the end. That's great. We really appreciate you listening. If you're an Apple user, we would love it if you could give us a rating on the Apple Podcasts app or on iTunes. Tap the 5 stars, smash the subscribe button. Please even feel free to leave us a review. Thank you very much. This was the Crypto Conversation for Brave New Coin.